cheerleaders. Hi. Tonight I'm going to start chapter 13, Thanks But No Thanks. Since Mrs. Brisbane didn't say a word to me on the drive home, I had time to reflect on the last few months. I had not had a bad experience with any of the families I had visited. In fact, they had all been gracious and welcoming, except Miranda's dog, Clem. But I knew how to handle him. In return, I'd lent them a helping paw here and there. After all, you can learn a lot about yourself by getting to know another species. I was overdue for trouble, and I was likely to get it at Brisbane's House of Horrors. That's how I pictured her home, decorated with skeletons and bats and eerie jack-o'-lanterns all year long. I was shivering at the picture I had in my mind when Mrs. Brisbane actually spoke. "Humphrey, I need you like I need a hole in the head," she complained. "The same to you," I squeaked back rudely, knowing she wouldn't understand. "I don't know what Bert's going to say about you, but whatever it is, it won't be pleasant. Nothing he says is lately," she continued. "Bert? Who's Bert?" Then I realized it must be her husband, the one who's sick. Well, I was certainly not looking forward to meeting him based on what I'd just heard. "It won't be much of a Thanksgiving," she said. "We don't have much to be thankful for this year, but I'll try." "Good for you," I squeaked. She almost smiled. "Thanks for the support." The Brisbane house was yellow with white shutters and lots of big trees. Colored leaves covered the front yard. "And on top of everything else, I have to rake," Mrs. Brisbane said through her gritted teeth. Inside, the house was surprisingly cozy. Not a skeleton or a bat in sight. Lots of pretty pictures on the walls, and some big yellow flowers in a vase on the table. "Bert, I'm home," Miss Brisbane called out. And a few seconds later, an old man rolled into the room in a wheelchair. His gray hair was uncombed and stuck out in places that it shouldn't. His chin was covered with gray stubble, and he wore very wrinkled tan pajamas. His expression was sour, and he looked as if he'd drunk a glass of vinegar. Mrs. Brisbane set my cage on the low coffee table. "We have a guest for the weekend." I could tell she was trying hard to sound cheery. "His name is Humphrey." Mr. Brisbane sneered. "This is unacceptable. For the little pay you get, that school can't force you to spend your weekend babysitting a rat." I bit my tongue to keep from saying something unspeakably bad. "They're not forcing me," argued Mrs. Brisbane. "It's just that no one else could do it. Let's not make a mountain out of a molehill." Pardon me, but I resented being called a molehill almost as much as being called a rat. Mrs. Brisbane quickly changed the subject. "I thought you were going to get dressed today." "Why should I? I'm not going to see anybody," Bert Brisbane growled, "except you and the rat." Mrs. Brisbane got up and walked out of the room without saying another word. Boy, nobody in room 26 could get away with talking to Mrs. Brisbane like that. I wish I could send her husband to Principal Morales' office right now. Everything was real quiet around the house for a while. Mrs. Brisbane changed her clothes to jeans and moved my cage onto a card table in the corner of the living room. And then she sat down and read the Guide to the Care and Feeding of Hamsters and the chart that my classmates kept on me. "Looks like your friends have been taking good care of you," she said. "Very, very, very good," I squeaked. She fed me and gave me clean water, and then she and Mr. Brisbane ate dinner in some other room while they watched TV. They went to bed early. I'll bet they didn't say 2 words to each other. Even Miss Mack talked more at home than they did, and she lived alone. That's it for tonight. Have a good one.